most wasteful and destructive system ever conceived of. It's a very stupid process where some people live very well. They call it sustainability. But what you have to offer takes things away from them. So that would be unsustainable. So sustainability is a word that has really no meaning unless you define your terms. Such a thing as that. So the system you live under is basically the one that creates the problems. So when Obama became elected in the States, they figured he'd do something new. He wouldn't even make it if he was that different. He had to say things that people identified with to get in. And if you do that, you can't change people. You can only change people by offering new ideas. When Edison came out with the electric light, some of his stuff was stolen, some was original, some were made by the people that worked for him. He didn't do everything. And no invention is completely radical. And there are many people doing research on cancer. Let's say you do research on cancer and you find out 100 things that don't work. That's useful too. So I read this book and 2 years later I come up with some help for cancer and I get a Nobel Prize. What about all the other people working on it? They work just as hard as you do. Giving a person a Nobel Prize discourages other people. You don't have to do those things. When people are properly educated, they feel good because they can add to cancer or add to the control of heart disease. They don't work for money. When people work for money, can you really trust them? I got just the car you're looking for. I got just the house you're looking for. All this is bullshit. And the kind of world you live in is essentially bullshit. And that's what it's made of. And there are no... There's really no bad words. Nice. Maybe if this young lady baked a pie and dropped it, she might say fiddly-dee. And a guy might say shit if he drops a pie. Doesn't mean he's sorry he dropped the pie. That's what it means. When a guy says bullshit, it means the guy can't accept what you say. It has nothing to do with fecal matter of the bull. So the way we use language, bothers some people. I spoke at Columbia University and I used profanity, and one of the academicians said, if your mother were here, would you use that kind of language? So I said, Mother, will you stand up? She was in other words, another thing that you have to learn is that the word love is another bullshit word. When you fall in love at 15, it's different than falling in love at 20. And when you're 27, your concept of love is different again. So all of us, I'm sure all of us will agree we've done stupid things in the past. Okay, if you agree with that, if you live with a replica of yourself, how long will you be together? You understand? You're a changing organism. You're always changing. And the people think that I believe in utopia. I don't. I don't believe there's any fixed system. It keeps changing. Your computers don't stop at a certain time and that's it. You go on, they get smaller and faster and do more. And cameras don't need film anymore. And in the future, they'll tell you a lot about the weather and everything else. So there's no final frontiers. There's no best society. There's no best laptop or camera. So children in the future will be educated to accept change, not hang on to tradition. Tradition is old systems that worked one time. So we can examine them and ask whether that system should be preserved. An elderly Jewish man came up to me one day and said, will you permit tradition in the future? I said, will you? He said, yes. I said, the Nazis meet once a month for 75 years. Is that okay with you? He said, no. I said, who selects what tradition? Your tradition, his tradition? So all of these things, Christmas is business, has nothing to do with anything. And look, we don't go to other countries to bring democracy. That's another whack of shit. We go there for their resources, their oil, their cheap labor. And business and armament is a real big industry, selling armament. So war is good business. I had a friend that was a pilot in World War I. He told me he flew over German munition storage systems and he was ordered not to bomb it. And he could not understand that. He thought of every reason. He said he flew over 8 times Krupp munition storage works and was told not to bomb it. He was so confused. When he got out of the Army, World War I, there was a book called Arms and the Men. I'm sure none of you have ever even heard of it. Everybody ever heard of the book Arms and the Men? It was pulled out of most libraries. It was written up in Fortune magazine in America. The whole article, how DuPont had shares in I.J. Farmer. That's why I was ordered not to bomb it. So everybody doesn't know what I'm talking about? Okay. Vested interest. You know what that means? People that have investment in other countries. They don't want that country bombed. So it's very difficult to have a war that's sincere. Most wars are for profit making. In fact, I should say, all the wars that I know of are for profit making. Now, a lot of people come to me or they come to our center and they say, this is their words, not mine. Why are these goddamn North Koreans building rockets? And why is China building big armies? And why is it that we can't arm too? Well, I can tell you why, and I don't want you to take my word for it, but if you write and try to get a copy of the newspaper called The Telegraph in England, U.S. presented headlines, and that says, U.S. intends to bomb 7 cities, and it names them nuclear. Sneak attack. It was not called a sneak attack, it's called strategic strike today. So it makes it safe. Anyway, U.S. intends to bomb several cities, and it names them all. Well, that's why they're arming. Doesn't it occur to you that people that would get in an airplane and fly them into the trade center, kill themselves, what did we do to make them that bitter against the United States? What did we do? We must have done something down the line. So in a true democracy, which has never existed anywhere in the world, your president would get up and criticize another country for an hour or an hour and a half. Then we would invite the prime minister of that country to give his point of view. Then we'd invite the prime minister of Sweden. He said, they're both full of shit. This is how I see it. That's a democracy. When you have every point of view, because you just got religion on Sunday, that's not a democracy. If you have comparative religion, what different people believe all over the world, that's better. But if you also have atheists, agnostics, everybody on the air, and you turn it on and off, that's a democracy. But when you got one point of view on the air called managed news, meaning they're letting you hear what they think you ought to hear. Somebody's making decisions about the way you ought to think and giving you their viewpoint as a dominant viewpoint. In the future, children will be educated in different cultures, different value systems, what different people believe. All over the world, they will travel, live with Italian families, Greek families. They get the feel of the culture. Most Americans, when they travel to France, they go to the American club. They go to Italy, they go to the American club. You don't get the feel of the other country when you do that. So if you get the feel of people, you find out they're pretty much the same. They all like their kids. They all want the same thing. So the way you bridge the difference between nations, no matter how different their culture is, don't touch their religion or their social customs that you don't agree with. All nations need the same thing: clean air, clean water, arable land, and a relevant education. Relevant education means how to maintain nature, keep it at best, keep the waters clean, not dump stuff into the ocean, toxic material. Why do you have to write your congressman? Who the hell is that jerk that you have to write? You say you want women's rights. He should be at the forefront of technology. When you fly in an airliner today, you don't write the pilot and say you've been flying at an angle for an hour and a half, straighten up. He knows his business. That's why you don't have to write him. And the navigator knows how to take you to Hawaii. But if you see icebergs coming up, you don't have to write the pilot and say, hey, where the hell are we going? Who are these jackasses you have to write? They should